Welcome to Living in Moments of Obedience. I wanted to spend a few minutes today, maybe a little bit longer than my normal moments, but I wanted to talk about my father wound. And I recently heard that terminology at a message at church about the father wound. And I discovered my father wound late in life. I had no idea. I had no idea the impact my father had on my life. I had no idea about the pain that was buried down inside of me. No idea that it existed. My mom was a businesswoman, owned a restaurant 30 years. Anybody that knew her could tell you she was quite a character, quite a person, and she just really was doing what she had to do to raise her family. I have an older brother. As my mother was married twice, I have an older brother who I love dearly, and myself. And she put us through college, and but my mother worked 6 to 7 days a week. Don't get it twisted. It's not like she was a restaurateur sailing around the world and vacationing. No, my mother worked hard every day. Um, and the house rule was you don't talk about my father. So I can't remember my father when I was little, and I couldn't quite understand why can't I remember who this person is? He's there, he's not there. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that all of this was known to me that I found out. But during that period of my life, from when I was little until I was in my 20s, the house rule was you don't talk about my father. The end. The end. No one was allowed to talk about my father that came near me or anything. So I didn't know anything bad about him. I didn't know anything good about him. I know I had a father, and you can't talk about him. So I had this dead spot where he should have been. It was like dead. It was like, and it really influenced my relationship with men in that they weren't very significant to me. My mother was my provider. She was made the way for everything to go to college, all of this stuff. And as far as I was concerned, men had no real value. You know, I just didn't, and I didn't consciously come up with that. It was what was kind of instilled in me. I can remember, God is something, and I didn't know Lord at the time. When I was about 15, 16 years old, one of my girlfriends' family had a newspaper that we didn't get. We got a different newspaper. And I was on my way to high school. Every day I would go and pick her up, and we'd walk on to high school. And that particular morning, I walked into her kitchen, and there on the kitchen table was a newspaper article with this familiar face on the cover. It was Daily News from New York City, and it was my father. I was like, the face looks familiar. And he was a cab driver, and he had shot two passengers that were trying to hold him up. And one of them he killed. And the article was saying, turn yourself in, because he went on the run. He didn't want to get caught because they were sailors and they were white. And so that was going to be a problem. So I never told not one person, not one of my girlfriends, not my mother, no one. I just ate that whole article, put it inside, and stuffed it down wherever the other stuff was, and kept on living. So later on, when I was in my 20s, is when, and he did serve time for that, he reached out to my mother and he wanted to reacquaint himself with me. So we got to know each other. And, he was my father, and I was happy to get to know him. I had nothing to do with him and his mom, my mom, whatever they had, whatever. And he was still my father. And he did die suddenly from a heart attack. I guess I had gotten to know him for about 5 years in that time frame, and then he died suddenly. I handled all the funeral. I didn't cry. I had no emotion where that person resided. There was no emotion there. And it was many years later when I was in my 50s and had come to know the Lord and made two very interesting choices, which I share in other moments, and wound up in a broken marriage that we're talking about another moment. And I couldn't understand. There was a pain in me that I would feel it just every once in a while, 2 or 3 times in my life. This pain reared itself up, and it was a little bit frightening. And so I was asking the Lord this particular day. I was listening to Ricky Dillard's Amazing, playing it over and over and over again. I was trying to understand what this fleeting pain was that I would feel sometime. And that day, I started crying and crying and crying and crying. And for a good 45 minutes, I was totally crying. And everything had to do with my father. It had to do with not having that one man that just loves you because you just are you. That one man that was supposed to make me safe and keep me safe and be my protector. Whether he did or didn't, I didn't have that. And even now to this day, it makes me emotional. But up until the Lord pulled that pain out of me, I had no emotion there. It was all buried. It was so buried. And I could look back over the years. I've been able to look back and see how that operated in my life. How it impacted my life, my whole opinion of men. Until I got saved, my whole opinion of men was like, not good. So, I wanted to just share about my father wound, because there are things that all of us have. Some of us have dealt with some of the things, but there are sometimes things that are in us and down in us that we don't even know that's there. And the Lord is faithful, and He will take whatever time it is that He takes to heal us. And sometimes He has to even reveal the fact that we're broken and where we're broken. And it's taught me to understand what a big deal this journey is we're on with the Lord. That He's taking us from glory to glory. He's taking us from one place to another place. And we've just got to be open to be on that journey, and always seeking and asking Him to show us, reveal things, heal us. And this journey will last until we go home to be with Him. There is no perfect point we're going to arrive at in this life. But we should be found pressing forward, forgetting the things that are behind, but pressing forward to that high mark in Christ Jesus. So this was a little bit longer than some of my moments, but it was a really critical point in my life to have had that like almost like cancerous tumor that's growing underneath everything, and you don't know how it's eating you up. You don't even know the things that happen in your life that trigger this pain from way back when. And trigger is a very popular word now, but it's real. It's real. Things can happen to us in our past, that things in our present can reach them and kind of hit that button and trigger something. So thank you for stopping by and living in moments of obedience. I pray that you just really allow the Lord to heal whatever it is that's there in you, that you will find complete healing in Him, and that you live all of your moments in obedience, that like this video and subscribe to my channel, and have a wonderfully blessed day.